In today's video, we're going to be backing a popular demand by you guys, and that is sublimation and design and how to do it. So we're going to show you from start to finish, buying a pattern, what program to use, designing it into that pattern that you've just bought so that you can print it and actually sew it together. This is going to be a lengthy process, so grab some popcorn, sit down and watch very carefully. Let's get straight to it. What we need to do is go ahead and Google Etsy, just that word. Once you've got that, you're going to open the website and then you're going to go to the search bar and type in the pattern that you're looking for. In this case, we're going to be doing a normal t-shirt pattern or a shirt pattern. Go ahead, type that in, push search, and then you'll get these results here. So now you could go ahead and go and look through all of these different ones that are available, but I'm going to scroll down until a very particular one that I like and it's easy to use, and that's this one here. And the reason for it is, and you'll see it just now, is just that it's easy to work with. So once you've gone ahead and you've signed in, you've created an account, and you're going to go and buy this pattern. Once you've got that done, the next thing that you need to do is you need a designing program. And what we like to use here is just straight Photoshop. So go ahead and go to Adobe, go to the website, and then click on Creativity and Design and go to an individual license. And you can go ahead and download and buy the full suite. It's not necessary, it's a waste of money. You basically just need Photoshop only. And once you've gone ahead and bought that, it's going to be a rent per month for a year. So make sure that you understand what you're getting into before purchasing this license. You could go ahead and use Coral, but I don't like using it. That's more for signage. Sublimation, it's much easier to use Photoshop if you don't know how to do vectorization and drawing with vectors. So now that we've bought our pattern, we've got our design program. Keep in mind this might change per month. Now what we need to do is go ahead and download those patterns from the website. Once you've done that, we can then go straight into opening it on Photoshop. So this is the latest 2025 Photoshop. What we need to do is just go to the folder that I had downloaded, and we don't actually know which one is correct in this case. So I'm going to open all of them and we're going to see which is the correct one to actually start working on. From there, we can start actually building the pattern that is required, and then you'll at least know how to do this and use the same method for any different pattern, whether it be pants, a jacket, or a shirt, or even a scarf, which is just a rectangle. So we're going to go ahead and push OK. Make sure that we've got it in color. Make sure that it isn't selected in grayscale over here, because grayscale is something that you do not want. You want CMYK or RGB. Just go ahead and open all those documents, and then we can see from there which one we actually want to use. So now that we've gone ahead and we've opened our one-page pattern, the other pages are merely just information that's going to help you stitch everything together. But we don't want that just yet. We want this particular one. So our first thing we need to do is go ahead and make a new layer. Take that second layer, drag it underneath number 1. Make sure that we've gone ahead and we've selected white as our color. You can just go ahead and click on that if you want to change it to any other color you want, but we want that one. Then we want the paint bucket. Don't stress if it's not there. You can always just right click and choose between gradient tool and paint bucket. Once you've done that, make sure you've got number 2 layer selected, and then you can push white, and then you'll see everything will start showing now because you don't have a see-through background. Now basically what this does is that checkered background is just showing you that it's a PNG. So all you can actually see is just the artwork, and this checkered pattern in the background is all just nothing. It is absolutely nothing. It is just there merely showing you that there is no color in the background. So we add white just so that we can see what's going on here. Okay, so now that we've got that and we can actually see what all the little dots and lines are, we want to move over to this little portion here, and this is basically our key for the design. So as you can see, for every 50 mils on this page is 5 centimeters in accuracy in size. So if you're wanting to design to size, you must keep this in mind. So for instance, if we wanting to do a logo, and that logo needs to be 8 centimeters wide. In this case, as it says, 50 mils is 5 centimeters. So if we want something that's 8 centimeters wide, then we want 80 mils wide. Okay, that's fairly simple to understand. So this is basically a 1-to-1 ratio. Some patterns you might encounter where it's a third of its original size, and you need to compensate for that while you're designing. I'm going to go ahead and just delete that rectangle because we don't actually need it. Now, if we have a look here, you've got your different sizes. Extra small, or double X small, is going to be a solid black line, which is our first one here. Then the next one is extra small, which is these dotted blue lines, darker ones there. And this is very difficult to see if you don't have an actual background there. Now, what we want to do is we want to actually take each of these lines. Either we're going to draw it, or we're going to just cut them out. And what we need, as you can see here, we've got a front of a shirt, and we've got the back of the shirt, and then we have got our waist belt, which is optional if you don't want to fold your shirt over and stitch it, or you've got your sleeve, which is cut directly in half. All you need to is duplicate it and fold it over. And again, you've got the bottom hem of the shirt, which is something that is very, very necessary to making a good t-shirt. Same goes for this piece here. It is optional, but I recommend that you actually print it and use it. So what we need to do here is make a bigger page. So our first thing is we're going to go and say File, New, and then we are going to set all of these parameters ourselves. So our printer and our material is naturally going to be nothing bigger than 1450. So you can print on wider paper. You can print up to 1600 millimeters wide, but most of the material that we get for our industry is never bigger than 1500, especially for shirts. Your other fleeces and polycottons come in a much wider material, but that's because it's meant for lining or curtains or whatever else. But we're going to stick to 1450. Then our height. Now that depends on the size of our shirt that we're going to do. So I'm going to start off with 2 meters tall. We can always make it smaller. We want pixels per inch. We don't want centimeters per pixels per centimeter, because the actual terminology here is dots per inch. Now, if you go ahead and change it to centimeters, and you can see it immediately changes from 300 to 118, which is incorrect. We want 300 dots per inch. That's how it works. Dots meaning pixels. So then we're going to go ahead and we can either pick RGB or CMYK. Now the biggest decision here is whether or not you're going to choose RGB or CMYK, because you cannot convert it properly afterwards if you've made up your mind, only after you've designed it. So the biggest difference here is that either we're going to print with something very vibrant in color or very dark in color. If you want something that's very vibrant and very dark, then you're going to go with RGB. But then that means that you're not conforming to a customer's CMYK Pantone colors. So if your customer says that the red has to be this specific color, the artwork that they are sending you, then you need to do it in CMYK. But if the customer says go balls to the wall and make it as beautiful and vibrant and decadent in the color, making sure that it's really nice, then you will go with RGB, because you don't have to conform to the customer's colors. But if you do, you need to go ahead and select CMYK. So I'm going to leave it at CMYK purely because that's what I'm going to choose today. Then from there, we are going to make sure that we select our working CMYK US web coated swap. So now that is our basic CMYK color palette, Pantone palette that's embedded in Photoshop. You can go ahead and download more of them. or different ones or make your own, but today we're not worried about that. We're just going to go with what's normal in the industry. And then yes, we want square pixels. Do not change that. Your background, you can either choose to be red, black, blue, whatever the color in the rainbow you want, or you can choose a transparent background. So just leave it as white because that's what we need to be able to see what we're doing. From there, we must go back to our previous document, which you can at the top left here. And we want to select layer number 1, and you're just going to left click and you can hold it and move it around. Once you've got it to be able to move around, we're going to drag all the way to our top tab here. And then either you can just let go, or the page will pop up like this if you wait patiently, and then you can drag it here and then let go on the page. Now it is on your new document. So now we are not using this old document anymore. We can save space on RAM, and we can go ahead and close and do not save, because that will keep a temporary file open while you're busy with this. So we don't want to waste space on your computer. Just remove whatever you don't need. Okay, so now the moment that you have it sitting here on your document, and as you can see, it is much wider and bigger than the actual shirt pattern. Most people immediately want to go ahead and Control T, which is basically transform. You can also do it by going to edit and then transform and then scale. But in this case, you can just push Control T and it'll bring it up. And you can either rotate it, you can mirror it, you can as you please. But do not touch it right now. Leave it as it is, because this is true to size. If you go ahead and just move anything in the wrong proportion, your pattern will not be able to stitch together, and then you will not be able to fix that pattern if you go ahead and save those changes. So the first thing we want to do is that naturally you have to separate all of these into their individual sizes, so that if you get an order and you want to just work on a medium or a large, you need to separate them to different documents so that you have each tab saved as a different size, and then work on it like that. Do not go ahead and have all of them on one document and then go and open that document and work on it, because you'll have a massive file and your computer will be bitter slow. So make sure you just use what you need. In this case, I'm going to show you on how to snip out, well, redraw. I prefer redrawing than snipping out, because then you have an actual line that you can work on. Whereas if you go ahead and you do something like using your actual snipping tool and you start going to, I'm just wanting to cut, in between these lines, then you end up with an actual piece that you can't go ahead and just select the line outline and then work with inside that. So you don't want to do this. That's not the option here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our paintbrush or brush tool. We want to go ahead and we're going to zoom in, because we want to more or less keep the same size, if not a little bit bigger. So I want to leave it like that. I don't want it bigger than that. I don't want it smaller. I want a decent enough thick line so that when you're cutting out with your scissors or electric scissors, you're at least cutting that border and not into your print once you finish pressing it. So what we want to do here is we do not want to draw on top of our original line. We want to make sure that we go ahead and swap back to a black line, or you can even choose red. I would choose red to start with. You can always choose it a different color later. Then we're going to go to the bottom of the screen and you're going to push new layer. So this, we can then see I've got our original layer, which is our actual pattern. Then we've got our layer 2, which is the layer that I'm going to draw the new pattern on. So our first thing I want to do is go ahead and just label things. So we're going to label the first layer our original pattern, where all the other patterns are on, so OG pattern. And it's nice to label things so you know which layer is what, because it can get very confusing when you've got 17 different layers going on. So we want to choose our first one, which is XXS, because that is our first one. And then we're going to go here, front or back or sleeve, or whichever the pattern you're going to redraw, because you want to make sure it's all separated so that you can see why just now. So make sure you select that layer, because we're drawing on that layer. And what we're going to do is we're going to start, and again, this is our back of the shirt, so not the front, so we must move to the front. Don't make that mistake, because the front of the shirt has a much deeper collar than the back. The back has a more flat collar. So now that we're here, we can just zoom in with holding down Alt and scroll, and you can do that back and forth with your scroll wheel on Photoshop. Just Alt and scroll. And if you want to move left and right, it's Control and scroll. And if you want to move up and down, it's just normal scroll with no buttons. Okay, now that you know that, it's going to save you some time. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to just start here in the middle, and we're going to hold down Shift, because if you don't and you go here, you end up with nothing. So if we click here and we hold down Shift and we do it in small increments, you can see we get a bit more of a tailored line rather than me. And I'm going to hold Control so we can move sideways and then scroll up without no buttons, so that we can actually see as we're going. If I had just had to start drawing by hand, as you can see I'm trying right now, no, I'm not going straight at all. So rather make sure you just put a dot there, hold down Control, and just move like 2 or 3 centimeters at a time, especially if it's a curved line, and then you end up, you know, having a really nice looking curved line, rather in segments, and not do it all in one go and make it look messy. Just keep going to the end piece. You can zoom out to make it easier. As long as you go ahead and push Shift before you click down, then you'll have a straight line. So just hold down Shift and left click, and then there you go. We can see we've got a nice straight line, whereas with the curves you want to go in segments. So now here we are again, we're back to doing it in segments. We're going to click there and we're going to just keep going. Okay, so now that we've gone ahead and we've cut out all of our little essential things to make our pattern, before we go ahead and duplicate it, we just need to go ahead and read all the fine writing all over the pattern, just so that you understand when you're going to stitching what is required, because that information is very important. The only thing we're not showing in this video is the stitching part, because that's something that is very essential to having a degree and having knowledge in stitching, because designing and stitching are completely separate things. You need to have someone that is dedicated as CMT, because this over here, all this writing is actually for that person that's stitching, is not necessarily all the time for the person that's designing. It is essential to read it as the designer, because you need to know your tolerances on where it's folded, where it's being stitched, so that you know that if you put a piece of writing in there, it's not just going to be cut off and folded away and hemmed, and then you don't actually see it. So we're going to quickly go ahead and read everything. I'm going to explain it very briefly, and then we're going to go to finally getting to our actual design stage, which is my most exciting part of this. The boring part is now done. So let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is go ahead and read each panel and make sure that we understand. So again, we've already gone over our size control and the different sizes. So what we need to see here is, so this is obviously the back of the shirt, back cut, one piece times that, but be careful, fabric solid cut on fold. Not so sure you know what they're trying to tell us there, other than depending on what type of fabric you're choosing, then you might have it very loose or very tight or no stretch to it at all. And keep in mind that your actual material needs to stretch in a certain direction. So as it says you have fabric solid cut on fold, that is where you should be cutting it. If you're joining it halfway, we're not doing that, so ignore that. And then your seam tolerance or allowance is very important here. So what this means basically is everywhere on the side, so let's say from the right hand side of this back of the shirt, you're going to be losing almost a centimeter folded inwards, and then you're going to overlock on the inside. So anything within a centimeter artwork on the side of your panel will be lost. So you're going to have that as basically just background. Make sure you keep all wording away at least 2 centimeters from every side of this pattern, and then you should be fine. And then as you can see here, if you're not going to print your waistband, which is optional, then you're going to need to allow yourself 2 centimeters at the bottom of the front and back for it to be folded and stitched, so it looks like, and do it with a cover stitch so it looks like you actually have a waistband. Now, most people do not actually print the waist belt, but some people absolutely love it and they really want it there, so we're going to leave it there. So keep in mind that if we're going to print the waist belt, you don't actually need to use this cover stitch and the tolerance there for folding, because this will be folded in half and then stitched to the bottom of the shirt right at the end. Right, it's the last thing you do with the shirt. Make sure that your front and back are together, and then you do the waist belt. Okay, so that's basically it for the back of the shirt. Let's go have a look at the front and see what it tells us there. My sewing patterns are tried and true size patterns. Keep in mind that this is an oversized pattern because that's what I had bought. So just keep in mind, depending on what you buy, you need to go look at the sizing to make sure if you're happy with it, because they do give you a sizing chart. Then front cutout, one piece, the same as basically what it said there on the back. I'm not really worried about that. Again, we're going to merge these two patterns, so I'm not going to have where we're cutting and where we're stitching together. The same applies there. You're losing almost about 1 centimeter on the sides wherever it's stitched. And then at the bottom there, the same as before, it's just saying that if you don't have a waistband, that you need to accommodate that much, so that you're losing that in artwork 1 to 1.5, 2 centimeters. Okay, then as for the waist belt, that is so simple, it's not even funny. You're literally folding it in half and then stitching it to the bottom of the shirt. So most of the time people actually just use this as a solid color or background. No wording is normally printed in here. Again, that's up to you. You're the designer, you can choose where you want to put what in the design. Okay, now we have gotten to our sleeve. Basically it's telling us that there's 2 pieces here. Again, you're going to cut where it's folded here, but we're not doing that. We are going to extend this, and same goes for the actual sleeve band or collar band, however you want to call it. But this is mainly going to be either for your sleeve or your collar, depends on what you want. But we're going to use this as a collar, and then our actual sleeve is going to be folded and stitched along this line here. And that line is very important because that shows you where your sleeve is meant to be stitched and folded. As it says here, cover stitch, double needle sewing. Very essential for the CMT to know that. Then again, as it says here, fabric solid cut on fold, as in there's no extra pieces you need. We just need to double this, and then as the arrow is suggesting, it's meant to be that way, we need to rotate it. So now that we've just gone over the wording, that is all very simple. Our first thing we're going to do is go ahead and hide our original pattern. So now we are only left with what we have just drawn, which is what we actually needed in the first place. But don't delete that background, because again, you might just forget something and you might not know what you're duplicating or drawing. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead to our sleeve, and we're just going to rename this because I actually want it for the collar. There we go. Okay, so now we've got our sleeve and collar. We need to rotate those two. So we're going to go ahead, make sure we have our select tool done, and you can either push Ctrl T or go to edit and then transform. But if you just push Ctrl T, you can just go ahead and click on the rotate in whichever direction you want. Very simple. Push done when you're done. Now what we need to do is duplicate everything that we've seen here, so that it's true to size. So because we only have half of what we need here. So I'm going to just select those two, and I'm going to align it to the left hand side so that they're next to each other, because I'm going to go ahead and right click and duplicate these layers. Right, And what we're going to do is we're going to drag them underneath the two that we are working on. So the copies are underneath our originals. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and push Ctrl T again. And we're going to mirror it from left to right so that we end up with that. Now that we've got that, we can just hold down Shift on our keyboard and hold down left click and move it to the left until it lines up there in the middle. Now, once we have got that lined up, we're just going to arrow a few steps to the right so that we make sure that we have that thickness of this line not duplicated, but basically we have the same thickness here as the same thickness as this line and everywhere else. And once we've got that, we can then go ahead and select our sleeve collar. I'm going to change that because the wording is incorrect. Apologies there, just change that to okay. We're going to select our two collars and we are going to convert to a smart object, and then we're going to go and say rasterize. Now that that is done, we just need to make sure that we name this thing correctly. And there we go. So that's going to be our collar, and that's the one that we're working on now. That's that one. We're going to go ahead and hold down Alt, zoom in and scroll because we want to delete this middle line here. And either you can just go ahead and use our selector and select an area, or you could go ahead and use your eraser tool. But it's really up to you. I want a straight line. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in. We're going to select just on that pixel. We want only that line there. And then we're going to go ahead and just hold our left click down until we get to the bottom of where we're cutting out. There we go, deleted. And I'm not worried about that little extra piece. It is so small that you won't even see it while printing. So now our collar is finished. So most of the time people will go ahead and they'll put a little piece here that says collar and then the size, which is very important. So you're going to go ahead and make sure we actually do that. Whether you do it now or later, it's up to you. And then you can actually merge it with your collar. So we're just going to select here and just left click. I don't really mind which font you use. You can use any font. And we're just going to type in here collar dash extra small, or extra small, sorry. And then we're going to go ahead and just leave that around about there. And then we make sure that we select those two together, and then either you can merge layers or do what I did just now and convert to a smart object. Okay, so now we've actually got it labeled, because if you do not have it labeled, once you've gone ahead and you've printed a whole bunch of different sizes and all the sizes have the same outline red, and you've got them next to each other and you've by accidentally mixed them around, you don't actually know what size you're stitching to what. So you need to make sure that you identify at the bottom or top of your, on the outside of the actual image, what size it's meant to be. Even if it's tiny, you could make it much bigger. It doesn't matter. You'll be able to see that. So next thing we're going to do is move over to our sleeve, and we're just going to bring those two together. And again, we're going to merge them because we want to delete that layer. And then again, you can just zoom in, grab your select tool and just select where you want the pixels to be selected. And we're just going to hold down our left click and move down until we get to the bottom of this pattern. Okay, so now that we're at the bottom, we're just going one pixel above and we're pushing delete. And there we go. And now we've got our sleeve. Okay, so now that that's done, all I'm going to do is go ahead and merge the correct sleeves. So that's right and right. And then we'll just merge the layers together. And as you can see, it saved it with the name that we wanted, and we just put it over the top. Again, right click, merge, and there we go, right sleeve, left sleeve. Okay, now that that's done, we can then move over to the rest of our pattern. Now I know for a fact that our waist belt has to be the same length as the actual shirt itself. So if you can see here, without taking the assumption that this needs to be duplicated, as you can see, this is already at full size. So again, just make sure that you are understanding before you go ahead and duplicate things that you shouldn't. This is already at full size. As you can see, half the t-shirt fits and it's halfway. So we'll just move this down, and what we need to do is go ahead and just label it. Go ahead and select those two together and merge them. And now we've got our waist belt. Okay, so now that that's done, what I'm going to do is just move this down here so that we can just have a bit more uniformity, so that we have things out the way. And then the sleeves as well, we want to move those down just so that they're out the way. Now let's concentrate on our back and front of our pattern. So we'll start off with our front, we'll leave that there. The back, I'm just going to move down so it's out the way. And again, you could also just move it off the page. It doesn't delete anything, it's just there, it's hiding in the background. Okay, so now we're going to select our front. And again, all we're going to do is right click, duplicate layer. Then we're going to push Ctrl T and then mirror it. Once we've done that, we can just say select, and we're happy with that. And then we just move over and hold down Shift until we can get those two together. And then again, we're just going to use the arrow keys to move one of them closer to the other one until we've got, as you can see, the same thickness line. And then what we do is we just go ahead and merge those two together, just like that. And then as you can see, it still says the front. Now for this bigger one, just to hurry up time, let me show you the other way we could do this. We can just go ahead and hold down Shift and left click at the same time and move across, and then you can see you've deleted that line. Okay, so now we've gotten rid of that line completely. All we need to do is go ahead and again, we need to label our shirt. And there we've got it. Now we've got our front finished. We can now move that out the way and we can bring our back, and we just repeat the exact same process. Now that we are finished putting everything together, duplicating and actually making sure that we have actual panels of our design, we are now finished doing all of that. So now we can start looking at an actual design within that pattern. So I'm not going to do something that is absolutely wildly complicated, because that's never going to be your first design. You want to try and ease yourself into this. So what we're going to do is find a pattern for the background, or make one. But I think let's just Google and find one. And then from there we can just, I'm going to use my logo just to show you what it looks like, and then put the proportions that you need to use. And then from there we can then save our design for print, and then we're actually going to print this and press it. We're going to get it stitched together so that we can see if what we've done is actually going to work. And it will, because we're going to show you the right way to do it. So let's carry on. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is just move everything so that it's kind of next to each other. Now, keep in mind, when you're printing everything, you don't want to really waste space. Your material needs to stretch from left to right of your shirt. It needs to go from left to right. It cannot go from top to bottom, because us humans, we have issues. Some people are a little bit wider than others, and we want the shirt to fit comfortably. So we don't grow from top to bottom, we grow from width. And then what you're going to do is go back and repeat the process for all the sizes and have your individual documents. So keep in mind that our actual angles and our pattern is all red. So if you're going to design a red shirt within this, then you need to change these lines to a bright green, a blue, an orange, something opposite to your actual design. Otherwise, when you're cutting this up, you don't actually know where you're cutting properly, and you mustn't cut too far into the shirt. So it's essential. You need to make sure that you do that correctly. Okay, so I'm actually going to do a more black, colorful design rather. So my first instinct is that what I want to do is, purely because we've actually got this as lines, right? The easiest and simplest method is to actually do a new layer fill, or you can just go ahead, grab your paint tin, and we can go ahead and select a color background. We can go for a dark gray, then we can find something nice and black to hide behind it. So make sure that whatever you do, you have to create a new layer on top of your layer that you're working on. So we're working on the front, which is this panel here. We want to make sure that if you're going to push that gray, that it's only going to be working on that particular layer and not on the layer that you have. Otherwise, if you've made any mistakes, you can't go ahead and just get rid of it and you still have your pattern. So make sure whatever changes you make, you do it within a new layer on top of the pattern, and then you can then merge those two when you're finished designing, or leave them unedited so you don't have to go and redo this process if you want to change the background. So my first thing I want to do is make sure I drag it underneath that front panel. From there, what we're going to do is we're going to go and select our wand, and we want to make sure that we untick continuous at the top, and we select our front panel and we left click on the inside of that front panel. This might take a few seconds, or it might take a while, but just hang in there. Now that you see you've gone ahead and selected inside, but you see it's now selected everything else that is background. Basically there is no background. So what we want to do is make sure that you keep continuously selected, because we only want what's within there and not every other color. And as you can see, you've got now that selected only. And what we can do is go ahead and select our gray layer that we want, and then we can right click on it while still on the wand setting, and then we can say cut. And what this does, it basically gives us a masked layer, so that you have it cut to the pattern, which is very essential because you don't want it to bleed out. You want to cut everything on that red line. So now that we've got a background, you can repeat this process with every other piece if you're wanting everything to be dark gray, which is what I'm going to do. So just follow along. I'm going to repeat it to the rest of them. Now that we've finished doing every other one, we can push delete on our last layer, and now we have everything with a background color. So keep in mind, the reason why I want it behind our actual pattern is because we need these lines here. We need this little line here to say where the sleeve is being actually stitched and folded. So certain things are very important. Now, if you have an issue with your CMT stitching your sleeves in the middle of your sleeve properly to the shirt, then go ahead and draw a little red line there as well. And the same goes for directly down the center to the bottom there. So when they're actually stitching it to the shirt, they don't have to think very much to just line up that center red line to the tip of your collar, to the tip of your shoulder where the shirt sleeve is meant to be stitched together. Okay, so now that we've done that, we can go ahead and we can either freestyle design or go and find something. So if you're going to freestyle it, really Photoshop is such an amazing tool to use. Just looking at this picture here and going and looking at the brush tool video, that just is a quick way of doing things on your own. So I'll do that as an example. What we do is we go ahead and we get our select tool again, and we have the correct layer selected, and we select the gray background. There we go. Now that we've done that, we can then go back to our brush tool and we can start doing whatever we want. And as you can see, nothing goes outside of your design. Isn't that fantastic? Because then you don't have to go ahead, go with a eraser tool and erase everything afterwards. We're only working in here, so that means we can just continuously doing whatever we want in whatever direction we want, and it's not going to come out of our shirt pattern, and it's as if you did it like that on purpose. And we're going to keep going. Let's go with an orange. I keep making that same mistake. Just click OK first. Just keep going, make it wild, make it weird. If you want to add a logo in there, my suggestion is to add it right over here, and you want to measure about along here to the middle and make sure that you're around about halfway in between the collar here and your line here. So that's going to give you around about there, and you want to do it in line with that sharp piece there so that you don't have the logo bleeding into your armpit. Just advice. Okay, so we can actually just complete and do the same process to all these panels, but I'm not going to do that. We're going to do our next panel as actually me going to go and find artwork, or as if I was given it. So I think what would look cool is maybe a carbon fiber or a steel looking background. This one, for instance, it's free. It's not the best looking one, but it'll work. So we're just going to copy it. We're going to go back to Photoshop, and I'm just going to paste it, Control V, onto the page. Now, because this is very small, I am wanting to actually duplicate it multiple times to make a background. So what we're going to do is we're just going to leave it that size. We're going to hold down Alt and push the arrow down once, and then you hold down Shift, and then you get another copy. Now, what we need to do is make sure that we invert it so that it actually, or mirror it so it actually follows the color better. So as you can see, it looks more natural now that they have been flipped to face the dark and the dark together. And then what we can do is just go ahead, and to make this easier, I'm going to put it inside a group, because there's going to be so many of them. What you do is you hold down Shift, and then you just select the two layers, and then you click on group, and then it'll automatically put it into a group for you. And we'll just name this steel, just so that we know what it is. And then what we do is we just select those again, Alt and then arrow down, and then you can get another set like that. And we just need to basically repeat this process. We can go ahead and select all of them, merge it so that you don't have too much data lying on your screen, and we just keep duplicating. And all we've got to do is wherever the dark is touching light, we just mirror it so it's light touching light. Push done, and then as you can see, you're actually starting to build a really nice looking pattern from this. So we just repeat the process. We're going to just go like that, and I'm going to select all of those. Make sure you got all of them selected. We merge it, and then we can move it over and kind of centralize it. And the only way you can do that is by selecting that layer and selecting our gray pattern as well as the red outline of the back. Okay, and then what you do is you go ahead and click on center on your screen, and it will center those items so that this is nice in the middle. Good pattern. Okay, so now that we've got that there, we're going to just duplicate it once more, and then if it's still not big enough, we can make it bigger. Okay, it's definitely big enough. So now we've got that done, we can just go ahead to our group there, and then we can say merge group, and now it becomes a actual layer. So now we can either duplicate this so we can use it on both of our front and back of our pattern, and again we'll center that one in a moment. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead to our gray. We're going to select our wand, we're going to select the gray layer, and then we're going to go back to our steel and then right click and cut, because again we only want what's on the inside of our pattern, not on the outside. So we just repeat the process for our other one, and we just go ahead and, my bad, if that happens, just go to your actual line pattern. I don't know why my brain went fart there. Just go to your actual line pattern and then again select it, and you can go back to your steel and then you can right click and then cut out. Remember, you want to try and leave things as layers. I deleted the wrong one. You want to try and leave things as layers so that if you make a mistake, you can at least either delete that layer and then redo it, or you have to redo everything again. Rather separate things. So as I've done here, unfortunately, all our lines that we did here has been merged to our gray background, which is okay. It's fine. It's not the greatest thing that we want to do, but I was just merely showing you, if you were finished with that, then you can merge it if you want to. So in this case, we're going to do away with that, and we're just going to move our pattern back over there, and I'm going to go with the steel pattern because I'm just showing you what you can do and what's capable of being done in this matter. So what I want to do is, I still want this to be a bit more grayish. So what we can do is we can double click on the layer. From there we can fiddle with our opaquency. Now as you can see, the lower I go, the more the background comes out. So I don't want to use that original background. We are going to just duplicate and make another one. So I'm going to just make this about, I would say 70% opaque, opaquency, and we do the same for our back shirt, about 70%. Okay, and as you can see the colorful stuff behind it, but that's not the ideal thing. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and duplicate our layer that we've got here, and then we're going to just turn it back to solid gray, which is just by easy as double click on that layer, going to color overlay, and then you want to turn it, and you can click on any other color on your board and it'll copy that color. So we're going to click on the gray and we're going to say okay, and then we have to go back to blending options and make sure it's 100% gray. Then we move that after rasterizing the image, and then we can move that back underneath, and there we go. Now they are the same. So now we've got this kind of grayish bluish steel looking background, which is looking really, really nice. We can now start adding other things on top of this. So either you could go ahead and leave your sleeves and your other accented colors just like that, or we could duplicate and do the sleeves and then just add something else. So we're going to try and make sure that this kind of matches. So what we want to do is we can just duplicate this layer 9 and we can move it to our sleeve area, and again we want it above our sleeves. We're going to move it to about there, and again we're going to go and select our magic wand. We're going to select the sleeve that we want to punch out, and I'm actually just going to move this layer a little bit more over because it's not centered in the middle of that pattern. As you can see there, we want it centered. Again, go to your wand tool, select the right one, the right sleeve. Once we've got that, we can go ahead and then right click and cut out. And then what we can do is move the rest of this checkered pattern to this piece here. If it's not going to work, we can punch out a different type of pattern so its sleeves are different. But however, you shouldn't do that. What you should do is make sure you duplicate what you already have, because you want the sleeves to match. So we're just going to duplicate it and then move it over there and make sure that it's within those red lines, and we're happy. So now I actually want these gray waistband and collar to be 100% black. I think it would look better, in my opinion. Again, we're designers. We can change our minds as we're going along. Whatever you feel looks better, you can go ahead and change it. So I'm just going to do a color overlay. That's basically what you've just seen me do. All I'm doing is just doing a color overlay. I'm double clicking on the area where there's no text, and then we go to color overlay and we can select the color. We can even go half, so we can go half black, half green, brown, whatever color you choose. So those are solid, so we'll leave those as they are because that's our accent color around the shirt. Accent colors are basically your smaller trimmings that shouldn't have artwork or names in them, because they are so small and they're hidden most of the time. There's no point at having too much artwork within that. So now that we've done that, I want to add some color to the shirt. So the best thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a color that we can pick and choose things out of. Okay, so I want to add a bit more color here. Now that we've got our accent colors, just the black collar and waistband, I want to add a bit more color in terms of this t-shirt is a bit boring. We've got a nice steel design, but I want to show off a bit more color here, and maybe we can add a logo as well. So let's go back to Google, and I'm going to show you another way of searching and finding something cool. So we're just going to type in abstract, okay? And abstract can mean anything that is out of the ordinary and is just strange. As you can see, there could be many different abstracts that you could choose or use. I am suggesting something that we can take color out of and delete a background, or maybe overlay it on top of the design that we already have. I've got an idea already that we can use. So I'm just going to right click and copy. And again, because I'm using this as an example, I'm not selling it. I'm just going to use these images for that example. I recommend that you find a non-commercial or a free license and download from that website. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and paste it here. What I wanted to do in my head, how I was thinking it, was to basically just have it as going from the bottom of the shirt upwards about halfway. So we don't even have to use the whole picture. And we can just like chop it somewhat halfway. I think that should do. So we're just going to leave it like that. And I want two of them because we want front and back. Now, either you can make these things rotated or mirrored, which is what I've just done now. Because as an example, if the two shirts are being sewn together, you kind of want these two pieces to match, right? So make sure that you do so. And that's quite simply just making sure that you've got the right offset, and because one shirt isn't as high as the other one, so we're just going to drag it in until around about there. That looks good. I think those will match. Okay, so what we need to do now again is make sure that we select the right panel, right shirt panel. So we're going to go ahead and select inside there, and we go back to our artwork, right click, and then we can say cut, and then we just delete the portion that we don't want. Now I know what you're thinking, this is probably not going to look good, it's not matching at the moment. I know, this is part of the process. Designing takes time, ideas take time, so just bear with me. So again, we're just going to select the background pattern. You may have a simpler way of doing this, but this video is then not for you. This video is for those people that don't know what they're doing. Okay, so now that we've done that, my next thought behind this is to kind of drag out this black, maybe bring out some of this checkered pattern. You know, we don't want it too dull, we want some of that color in there. And again, we're choosing abstract because this is just strange as it is. So first thing I want to do is I want to add to this, and then we're going to slightly change the opaqueness. So first off, I'm going to go ahead and get my magic wand. So I'm going to select the one that we're working on, which is this one, because I don't want to go out of that pattern again when we're drawing. And we're going to go back to our new piece that we just brought and introduced, and we want to make sure we've got black. You click that little block there in the bottom left or top left over there, and that resets the colors. So even if you go and choose red, just go ahead and reset it and you got black again. So now that we've got that, we're going to go ahead and select our brush tool, and we want a soft one. You can read them, there's difference between all of them. I want actually I want this one with opaquency, and we're going to make our tool as kind of big as possible, like so. And we're just going to start adding in a little bit of black, and we're just going to play around with it. And then the moment we go higher, we just bring down the opaquency and we start going less and less until we get something like that. And as you can see, we have now blended this image, which I think looks really nice actually. Some people might think it looks stupid. Again, this is up to you, it's up to your imagination. What you do is how you are going to do it. I can't tell you how your mind is going to work, but that's basically an idea that I'm running with. So again, we'll do the same thing. We go select the background that we want, we select the magic wand, we select that layer, we go back to the layer that we want to actually edit, and then we go back to our brush tool and we go back to 100% opaquency, and we just start, you know, filling in those spaces again. You know, add some flair to it, get a bit of a different idea going there. You don't have to copy what we did in the first one. You know, you can make it a bit more aggressive, less aggressive. You can tone it down so it's not as strong when you're doing the brush strokes. As you can see, they went to there to 30%, so we can actually see more of the checkered pattern. This side's a bit darker than that side, no problem at all. So now that we've finished that, we are now happy with the front. I'm going to add a bit of black to the sleeves, don't worry about that, but I want to just add a logo while we're here. Just while we're here, we need to add a logo. Now you can either add your own, you can use your customer's logo. So I'm just going to say place embedded, and then we're going to go look for a logo quickly. So bear with me. Okay, so I found my logo that I have one of. This is not the logo, but what I did want to show you was what happens when you have a white background. Now either you can leave it as it is, or you can just delete it. It's up to you. So I'm going to make sure that we don't exceed 80 mils in width or height. Mostly width. Height is not really an issue, but we don't want it bigger than 80 mils, otherwise you're going to have an issue with the logo being inside the sleeve. So again, we follow the middle dot from the top there, we go down until we hit the bottom there, we move a little bit over, move a bit up, and then that's where we want it. So just double click and leave it there. So either you can leave it as it is, because again, a customer's logo is a customer's logo. You shouldn't be messing with a customer's logo, so just keep that in mind. We go to our magic wand, and what we want to select and make sure that we're on the correct artwork, rasterize the layer, because you can't do it on a smart layer. And we're just going to select the white, but here again we need to untick continuous, and because we want all the white. So once we've selected that, it might take a few, just be patient, then push delete, and there you have it. You've got a logo without a background, and we can leave it exactly where it is. So now, as you can see, this t-shirt is slowly coming together. So now what I want to do is we're going to head over to our sleeves, repeat the process with the black. I'm not adding colors to the sleeves. We're just going to add a bit of black in different directions, different opaquencies. So we go ahead, select our magic wand, we select the layer that we're busy with. Now that we're here, we're going to go ahead and select our brush tool. Once we've selected the layer that we're working on, I'm just going to go and make sure that we have at least about 80% opaquency. It doesn't have to be exact. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw along the bottom, and I'm going to just go back and forth and make that a slightly darker kind of gray. And then we're going to hit it with a 60%, and we're just going to go in different directions. Darken one area more than the other, kind of make it look like we're doing this on purpose. Okay, now that we've done that, I'm going to go ahead and move over to the next one and just repeat that process. So there we have it, guys. We have completely designed and selected and redone the pattern digitally so that you can keep reusing it in the future. So now that we've done that, we now need to go to print, and we're going to print it on our Sublimation printer from AM.CO.za with the correct ink and the correct paper, and from that we'll press it and then get it stitched. So let's get to printing. So guys, we're going to print this out on our AM printer as normal, and when it comes to pressing, we have already got so many videos that we've done on our YouTube channel already in the past, and I suggest you go and watch those videos to show you how to press with what material and the correct settings. When it comes to CMT and actually stitching your item together, it's very important that you use industrial machinery and not the machines at home, as you will have many breakdowns, and it's just not suggested that way because these machines are meant for doing this type of work. And that's how we put this shirt together. Okay guys, we've got our shirt back from CMT here, and we've gone ahead and put it on our lovely model here, Susan, and she's wearing it really well. Now I'm happy with how this came out because the bottom here where all those color bursts have come out, it's coming up towards this dark area, and where it meets the steel looking background and then the accent of our collar, I think it matches really well, and the shirt came out fantastic. So guys, I hope you've had enough popcorn throughout this entire video. I know it was very long, but it was very necessary because what we taught you in this video is hopefully going to be able to be used on any pattern in the future. And as always, if you liked this video and liked what we did here, go ahead, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you can get notified on future videos just like this one. Thank you for watching.
AI may eventually take over, but what's for certain is that smart machines are already operating all over the world right now. So stay ahead with AM.CO.za. For 11 years, they've been the leader in CNC and printing machines like CNC routers, large format printers, vinyl cutters, laser cutters, plasma cutters, DTF printers, and many more. Visit am.co.za showrooms in Sunny Rock, Joburg, and Montague Gardens, Cape Town, or WhatsApp hi to 060 600 6000 for more info. am.co.za. Achievement matters.